it's sore and it's dry, and they invent these vibrators for women with arthritis, and then they're like, well, actually I need a bit of lubricant. It's like, well, I make it out of yams, you know. And then so they came up with all these solutions for things that actually it's a no-brainer.
Your love's what I need. Your love is what I need.
Hello and welcome to Dating is Such a Drag. I'm Jean Sullivan-Bellecci, the Soulmate Coach, and I am with the fabulous Lady Portia DeMonte. Hello, Portia.
Hey, girl. Oh, well, it feels like long time no see, but it hasn't, because we were together not so long ago for my party.
For your surprise 40th birthday party that you threw yourself.
Shocked. I was so shocked. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. I walked in and all these people were here that I had no idea you were there, and my God, so shocked. Did you have fun?
I really did, and because you and I discovered we have another thing in common, a love of espresso martinis. I got this in your honor, since I'm still in Dublin.
Thank you. I love it.
So it was so great to celebrate your party with you. How do you feel turning 40?
Oh, I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the party was everything that I wanted it to be. I didn't get a DJ specifically so that I could program the music, and when I saw people up dancing, I was like, I know that they love this song, I know they love that song, and I could program the playlist and stuff like that there. I loved having Anya there and doing a bit of cabaret for people, and then I had a saxophonist, and the girl just appeared and started doing, you know, numbers and things like that there. And it was so wonderful. It was like a party from 2019. Everybody was up dancing, enjoying themselves. And I think that I'm going to need a new liver if I get through all of the alcohol that has been bought for me.
Yeah, it was funny because I was dancing before. It's funny, there were a lot of Irish people there, and Irish people tend to need a lot more, at least that's what they tell me, that they need to drink a little bit more before they dance. I was dancing like right away, like dancing with myself for quite a while. It took everybody else a little time to catch up, but they got there.
It was and then it was lovely to have you at my private sort of Marcus dinner as well, which was nice on the Saturday as well. And I
felt like such a VIP.
Oh, I loved your friend that you brought as well. She was amazing.
Yeah, she really was. She really was. So you feel good?
I feel great. The thing is, I don't feel any different now than I did whenever I was 15, 25, 30, 35, 40. I don't know if you're meant to feel different. I just feel exactly the same way.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I could say the same, because I'm a little bit, don't tell anybody, but I'm a little older than you are. And I'm starting to get a little bit of the brain fog and hot flashy poos.
So the thing is, mentally I don't feel any different, but physically I am starting to be aware of different changes within my body, and you know, it's not as easy to lose weight and things like this here. And also because I do a lot of work around menopause and male menopause, I actually have started to notice that because I've done so much research and I give these talks, I'm going, oh, that is due to menopause. Oh, that is due to that. Oh, that is due to that. So I'm actually in the process of spotting things, and even different changes in my skin and the quality of my skin and stuff like that. So I'm seeing changes. I don't feel any different, but I'm aware and cognitive of changes within my body. But do you know what? Who cares? We all age. We all get older. I still haven't found the man of my dreams yet. I'm still happily single. So that's
good for you.
There was nobody in my birthday presents.
Well, since I'm in perimenopause, I wanted to ask you. You know how I've always felt like there's a drag queen inside me, and her name is Mystique Royale. Well, I think maybe I'm changing. I'm going to change her name to Cherry Menopause.
Cherry Menopause. I love that. Cherry Menopause.
Well, you know, the Mystique Royale name was just it was fun in the beginning, but it's kind of generic. You know, I thought I wanted something more humorous. So just something I'm throwing out there.
I love it. And do you know what? It's perfect because, you know, certain names suit certain times of your life. and also they suit certain like looks and things. So actually, from here on in, cherry menopause would be hilarious. You know what I mean? It could really be cherry menopause and 20. You know, cherry menopause is only a rite of passage for your age.
Oh, I think it's a done deal then.
I love
Cherry
it.
menopause.
And we, speaking of menopause, just so that neither of us get too quick hot flushes, I've got the fans on here just in case. Tell us a little bit about our guest that we have today.
Well, you're gonna love her. Her name is Vanessa.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how lots of women, and I know you're going to talk a little bit about male menopause too. I'm fascinated by that topic. But you know how lots of women in the midlife start to experience, like I am, hot flashes, brain fog, insomnia, weight gain, and intimacy issues that keep them from living their best lives. And in some cases, dating. A lot of my clients are going through that. So Vanessa is a traditional naturopath, CEO of a natural cosmetics company. I knew you would love that.
Love it already.
It's called Natural Look Mineral Makeup and Professional. She's also a professional belly dance instructor, which I think is fabulous because I love belly dancing. Vanessa helps empower people to reduce menopausal symptoms using natural methods and learn how to make this the most impactful phase of their lives while feeling healthy, vibrant, and focused. So shall we let Vanessa Nixon in?
Yes, indeed. Please, because I've lots on this topic.
Hello, gorgeous.
Oh my goodness, you look amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm so delighted to be here.
Oh my goodness, I love that you're in the green. You look like a Celtic goddess, and I'm beaming in from Belfast in Ireland. So you look amazing.
Oh, thank you. So do you.
Well, it's a little number I threw together, you know. Subtle sequence.
Vanessa, we were really excited to talk to you because I am going through perimenopause. And in fact, I was telling Lady Portia that I'm thinking of changing my drag name from Mystique Royale to Cherry Menopause. And, you know, Marcus was telling me that he also does a lot of talks on male menopause. And I think this is such a timely topic. And the reason I really wanted to have you on is, of course, you're a brilliant naturopath, and you can, you know, share with us some tips on, you know, navigating the whole menopause journey with natural products. And of course, your fabulous makeup. But I really loved it. I heard you on a recent talk about how menopause is an initiation, and it can really be a doorway to the best, not only the best life of your life, but the best sex, which I think a lot of people need to hear, because a lot of times in our culture, we hear that, you know, oh gosh, that's like something to dread. But it's actually, you know, statistics show women especially are happiest in their 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely.
Shall we jump in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. You know, I just went through menopause a couple of years ago. So I'm post-menopause now, but I went through menopause and a divorce and moving to a new town, becoming a single mom, buying a house on my own for the first time, and then starting to date after 50 in menopause, all at the same time, within like a year time span. And so I'm very intimately familiar with this subject. And I find that for a lot of women, it's very common. It's very common to go through all of these life changes at that time of menopause and during that transition. It's not just a transition of hormones, it's really a full life transition. And that can be really scary and really intimidating for a lot of people. And so the questions of, okay, how do I navigate menopause, number one, but then how do I navigate dating again? How do I navigate sex and intimacy after menopause? Those are questions that come up very commonly. And as a naturopath, My goal is to provide natural options and solutions particularly for women who are in that phase of life. And there are so many options, but for me, it gets down to, looking back to the natural cycles and the natural rhythms of nature, and how we as human beings are part of nature. We're not separate. And so if we go back to looking at, how are we naturally supposed to navigate this time of our lives, we find a lot of those answers.
I love that. I love everything that you are saying, because there's a lot of women out there, and they are struggling with this secret, because they don't talk about it in the workplace, and they don't talk about, and like mothers sometimes don't even share it with their own children, because it's like, don't even talk about it, just open a window, get a fan. And it's this thing of the fastest growing sector in the work environment are menopausal women, because women are actually staying on longer in work. It's not women having children. It's not like the 18 to 30s. It's women who are staying on longer in work, and they're the fastest growing sector in the business and leadership community. And it's the smallest sector. The menopause is the least bit of anything that people talk about. It's this secret. And it's so funny, because I saw this comedian say that if men got hot flashes, that they'd blow up the sun, but women have to manage careers, teenage children, usually or in and around that time, or university children. The navigating, usually by this age, they've either gone back for the second time round to the workplace, or they're at a position of higher leadership, because they've been in the roles more, and hot flushes and periods and everything else that's going on in life, and make dinner and get the shopping and make sure that the kids have everything. And nobody realizes how much pressure in general women are under. Now, I'm not generalizing, because I know that men will do an awful lot of work as well, but in general, if we're taking a big general sweep at this, that women have juggling so many different plates, that it's funny. I was at an event where one woman's husband hoovered, and her mother was like, "Oh my God, you've got it made. This lady's pregnant with 3 kids." And her mother was like, "Oh, you've life made. Your husband hoovers." And people don't understand how much pressure women are under at especially that age, when hormones are being thrown at them from 3 or 4 different directions, and you get things like the brain fog and the flushes, and it gets so uncomfortable for women and so embarrassing sometimes for women, that they just leave. And what's leaving the workplace is experience and knowledge and compassion. And that's why we have fewer women in places of leadership, because they go, do you know what, I am literally just going to take a couple of years off, and then I'll get a job in a charity shop, or I'll go back part-time as a consultant.
Yes. Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about the amount of stress that women are under during this phase of life. And that is, for me in my practice and with my clients, that's what it all comes back to, is the fact that we are dealing with so much stress. And it's not the fact that our hormones are shifting that cause these symptoms that we're having. It is the fact that we're under so much stress, because the fact is our hormones are supposed to shift at this time of our lives. That's normal and it's natural. But what causes all of these really uncomfortable and sometimes unbearable symptoms is the stress, which causes this cortisol cascade, which then causes all of the rest of the hormones to become out of balance with each other. And so it's really the stress. And there are so many ways that we can address stress naturally. And so that is one of the first things that I do when I work with women, is find out, where the stress is coming from and how we can address that stress. And then all of the other things that they're experiencing kind of start feeling the trickle-down effect of the stress reduction, because at this point in time, it's still very taboo to talk about what menopause even is. A lot of women that I talk to don't even know the technical definition of menopause. So how do they even know if they're in it, or if they're in perimenopause, or, you know, what is postmenopause? I thought once you went into menopause, you were always in menopause. And, you know, so it's just a very, very confusing time, and that creates so much stress.
And what are some of the tips that you have to treat stress or to support your body during all this stress naturally? What are some of the top tips?
Yeah, I would love to give a few tips. That's a great question. So number one, you know, as a traditional naturopath, I have a lot of natural tools in my toolkit. And the first one I always go to is nutritional healing, because even though it's cliche to say we are what we eat, and if we're not putting in the nutrients that our body needs, then it can't use those nutrients to deal with the stress. And also there's another piece to that. If our digestive, if our whole GI tract is not functioning appropriately, then it doesn't matter how many wonderful, healthy, nutrient-dense foods we eat. If we can't assimilate it, it's not going to do any good. So starting with the gut is generally the best place to start. And, you know, one of the things that we can do is making sure that we have a healthy gut flora. So lots of probiotics and prebiotics. And of course, you know, the common suggestions that we've all heard about, lots of leafy greens and lots of vegetables, and making sure that the foods that we eat are in as whole a form as possible and not processed. You know, 90% of what we see at the grocery store these days is not actually food. It's food like, you know, processed packaged substances.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and our body needs food. Our body needs whole foods. It needs organic foods, so that it can get the nutrients that it needs. If you have any sort of digestive issue where your body isn't able to assimilate these healthy foods you're eating, then addressing that by making sure to heal the gut first.
And what would be some of the key foods to start introducing into your diet pre-menopause and during menopause?
Yeah, that's a great question. So aside from just those general categories that I mentioned, one of the things that I really love to do and has been really helpful for my clients is getting their probiotics through foods, primarily through fermented foods. And so that could be sauerkraut, and sauerkraut is not just fermented cabbage, it can be any vegetable. So there's a huge variety of foods that you can create sauerkraut from, and yogurts, miso and tempeh and natto and kombucha and milk kefir and water kefir. There's just, the list goes on and on for fermented foods that you can incorporate into your diet on a daily basis. Some cultures that have very few menopausal symptoms in their populations, like in the Japanese culture, they have probiotic foods that they eat with every meal, every day. And it just might be a bite or two, but just having those on a daily basis really helps to set your digestive system up so that you can assimilate all the other foods.
And
the next thing,
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love how you mentioned about the Japanese culture, because they don't even have a word for menopause. Menopause doesn't exist there. It's just you transcend into a different time of your life. So, and their menopause, like you were saying, it's very short and it's very precise, because they are eating all the right things and doing all the right things, and they're healthy. And because there's no baggage around it, then it kind of sort of like slips in, it happens, and then they're able to assimilate into this new way of this new way of being as well. So it would be great, you know, to try to get, you know, more people aligned with that way of thinking and the right ways of eating. Do you have on your website, or like if we were to share links or anything like that, would you have like your top tip guides to foods, or what to do and what not to do?
What I do have on my website is a free gift that is a checklist. It's called Goodbye Hot Flashes, Brain Fog, and Insomnia.
Oh, I love that.
And it is just a really quick and easy checklist of things that you can do, all natural remedies that are accessible for, you know, every woman, that they can do very easily to address those top symptoms that can come along with menopause. And I love what you said about the Japanese, because, and I just want to add one short thing to that, and that is that both the Japanese and the Chinese traditional medicine systems, they call this period of time in a woman's life her second spring.
Yeah.
So it is not something like we in our society kind of avoid or you know, don't look forward to, but in their societies they actually look forward to it, because it is this second spring of their lives when they know that they're going into this really creative, wonderful, vital phase of their life. And I love that concept.
I'm very, very excited to talk to you about that. And I know there are people in the audience who desperately need to hear this message. But before we go into that, I just wanted to make sure, which website do you want us to drop a link in the chat to?
I would love to drop the link to the herbsofgracehealingarts.com website.
Okay, we'll do that. But just in case for people who are listening, they want to just jump on right away, Absolutely. They know where to go. So speaking of second spring, I know you've lived this, so you really know what you're talking about here. You've walked the talk. But just for the purpose of people listening, can you just walk us through the process that you went through and that your clients go through in what's happening before the second spring and then what happens after?
Absolutely. Well, this kind of goes back to the technical definitions. So perimenopause is the time before menopause, which can last 10 years or more. A woman can be in perimenopause, and that is the time when their hormones are starting to transition. The level of particularly estrogen and progesterone are starting to diminish. And again, that's natural. It's supposed to happen because we are coming out of the reproductive phase of life. And that's why we had hormones at those levels, was so that we could produce if we reproduce if we chose to. So that can happen very slowly over a number of years, or it can happen very quickly. It's very individual. And then menopause is a 12-month period of time when you haven't had a menstrual cycle for 12 months. So you actually don't know when you're in menopause until you're done with it. And you can look back and say, oh, that was 12 months without a cycle. I was in menopause. And then from that period on, you're post-menopause. And so, so that's kind of an overview of the general transition, the journey through the menopausal phase.
This is the culture that we need to completely change. We need to talk about this. We need to normalize it. And it is part of human life. This is exactly what happens. And I couldn't remember the second spring. I knew that they had a lovely term for it. And what do we say? We say they're in their autumn of years or winter of years. Like, this is it. You're on the scrap heap. Whereas that's not it. Look at the Asian culture where they actively celebrate it. Because another thing that I love about the menopause with women is the I don't know how to put this in the most politest way, but like less fucks given hormone starts to decrease, because when you're fertile, everybody around you, you're trying to make sure that the foods are read, the beds are made, the homework is done, because this hormone is within you, the real mothering one. Now, you don't lose the mothering instinct, you're still kind and caring, but all of a sudden once that goes, where you have to make sure that everyone's happy, you start to be a little bit like, no, sorry, it's not working
Time for me.
Yeah, that's not working for me, honey. Well, what do you mean that's not working for you? What do you mean you're not going to have my dinner ready? What do you mean you're not going to do this? What do you mean you're not going to do that one? No, sorry, I'm going to do a salsa class. See you later.
Or belly dancing in
Yeah, or
Vanessa's
belly
case.
dancing. I love that.
So
Yes.
Vanessa, can you walk us through, I love that Marcus just, brought this up, because I really want to get to how this became a second spring for you and also for many of your clients, because I know for the people who call me, a lot of women, they really want a partner. They have this clarity now in this phase that they have this renewed sense of purpose. They want to live a new life. They have like this whole new beginning that they want to have, but they're embarrassed about menopause. They're uncomfortable. They don't feel always confident that, they can have this new romance in their life. And they're also a little nervous about sex. So I was hoping you could give them a little inspiration and some tips.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so for me, what it goes back to is that this is not something that's just happening to us. It's happening for us. And I know that can be really difficult to truly feel when we're having the hot flashes and the brain fog and insomnia. But I really believe that all of these changes and transitions that we're going through, including some of these symptoms that we're having, are part of our body's message to us to say, it's time to look a little bit deeper into what you want. As was just mentioned, we were talking about how we're focusing on everybody else until this part of our lives. This is the time when we get to say, what do I want? And who do I want to be with? Who do I want to surround myself with? What feels good to me? I mean, how often in our, intimate lives have we thought about that? For a lot of us, we haven't, especially if we've spent 20 years being moms and caregivers. It's not very often that we think, well, what do I need? What kind of touch do I like to have? What feels good to my body? What feels good to my spirit? And so I really feel like that's the initiation. That's why we're going through this transition, to allow us the opportunity to look deeper into ourselves and answer that question. And sometimes in order to answer that question, we have to look at issues that we haven't taken the time to look at in the past. That whole, very juicy energy, creative energy, we still have that. But in our society, we feel like we're cut off from it because of how we're conditioned. And so part of dating again and having new relationships or having the best sex of your life after menopause, part of that is going deeply into yourself, finding the inner wisdom, listening to the messages that your body is sending you and honoring those messages and giving that to yourself. If your body is asking for you to slow down, making sure that you are honoring that by slowing down. If your body is, asking you to, be with people who are more respectful of you and more honoring to you, then listening to that and
Honoring your pleasure.
Honoring your pleasure, yes. And it is true that sometimes we have symptoms like, dryness and the thinning of vaginal tissues and things like that can make sex uncomfortable. And there are natural ways to address those too. There are natural herbal oils, and there are things that, herbal teas that you can be taking that can address that juiciness and aliveness that you want to have again. But just the act of listening to what brings you pleasure and what you want, and honoring that within yourself goes so far to the kind of intimacy that many of us never experienced before menopause. It is definitely a time to focus on what you need and what you want and what you want to create in this next half of your life.
I think it's wonderful, you know, what you're saying, because any relationships, or, you know, like women or men who have the second time round in marriages, usually they're, you know, they're 45, 50 plus. And at that age, you know who you are and you know what you're about and you know what you want. So that makes sense that whenever you're going into a love relationship and a physical relationship and an intimate relationship, that you're going, you know, for all these years, I kind of did this because it's what somebody else wanted, or I kind of thought that's what you're meant to do. But I love this. And one of the things whenever I'm doing the talks around the male menopause is that because it's such a slow decline, all of a sudden men will have like one area of erectile dysfunction, and then they think that's it, and they get so in their own heads that every single time they go to do the act, 1 in 9 times that somebody will have erectile dysfunction is physical. The other 8 is mental, because in their heads they're going, I'm not going to do this right, I'm not going to do this right, or they get nervous, and then they start to pull back from partners and their wives, who again, they're also their bodies, and like you were saying, it can be sore and it can be dry, and you've got these two people, one's trying to get in and one's saying, oh, it's a bit sore to get it in, and then they're both kind of going, let's not do this. And then that's where communication is really, really key, because both sides feel that they're doing something wrong, or they're not the full person, they're not fulfilling the right role that they're meant to be fulfilling. And then men will get a Viagra or something like that, and then go, right, well, it's up now and it's working, so I'm just gonna do it now. And then the women's kind of going, oh my God, well, he's finally, I don't want to get it to go soft, or, you know. So there's all this thing around, and the actual physicality of intimacy is gone, because it's almost like a race to try to get it right. It's working now, let's make it. Whereas the physicality of touch and caress and oils and kissing and just lying even naked beside each other is as important and powerful. And that's why a lot of relationships around that at that time split, because the communication is dead, and one partner thinks the other person's pulling away because it's something to do with them, and the other partner thinks that, you know, there's a change in intimacy, they don't want me, it's something, whereas the other partner's going, I can't fulfill my role, I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing. And if we stopped making everything so dramatically, or such a secret or a shame around everything, and just say, and men communicate with men and just go, oh my God, I've got erectile dysfunction, and are any of you guys suffering from this? And this is something that, because men don't communicate the same way that women do, they try to navigate everything on their own, and then divorce happens, or they buy a Ferrari because something else isn't working, you know? And it's just like, I just would love to get society to a point where they just go, this is part of life and this happens. And if men knew, and wives knew, because also women don't really know what's going on with men either, because they're not communicating it, because they think that they should be these virile hot men that at any point of, you know, they could pitch a tent. Whereas that's not actually the case. So if women knew, well, you know, this is going to happen, and it has happened now, so do we address it? What is it? And address the elephant in the room, and it will disappear, you know. And it's not always about penetrative sex. It is literally about touch and intimacy and exploring each other's bodies, you know. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot in my workshops for the men as well. But I was just wondering on what your take would be on something like that, you know, around the communication of intimacy. And it's not just about, it's working now, let's get it to happen, you know. And I loved, I know that it was a comedy series, but Grace and Frankie, because then they're going, well, it's sore and it's dry, and they invent these vibrators for women with arthritis, and then they're like, well, actually, I need a bit of lubricant. It's like, well, I make it out of yams, and then so they came up with all these solutions for things that actually it's a no-brainer. It was made into a comedy series, but the two women behind it are actually great pioneers in, celebrating all seasons of women.
Exactly. I love that show too. I think that you, I love what you said about communication, because really that is exactly where we have to start. And the first part is communicating with yourself, as I had mentioned earlier, really listening to the messages your body is sending you. And for women in the menopausal journey, usually that is about going slow and a lot of touch and a lot of just finding out what's pleasurable now. Because at various stages through a woman's life, different things will feel pleasurable, and that will change. And that's part of the feminine energy, is being fluid and being changeable and being open to that. And so when we are so changeable, we have to communicate that to our partners. We have to talk about, what feels good today, and it may feel different tomorrow. And one thing that I think is really key, and I got this from a colleague of mine, Veronica Monet, who is a sexologist and relationship expert. And she talks a lot about approaching intimacy with curiosity, and it speaks to the situation that you were just describing, where, one partner is thinking that they're doing something wrong and the other partner is thinking they're doing something wrong. And if you just approach it with curiosity instead of what am I doing wrong or what should I be doing, it's more like, how would this be if we tried this? Or, I wonder why I'm feeling this way right now. And that just opens up a whole breadth of conversation that wasn't there before. If you can just approach things with curiosity. And that has really helped me in my dating journey during menopause, of just approaching situations with curiosity. And, now I'm in a long distance relationship, which in the past I would have never even considered being in a long distance relationship. I would have thought, how can that work out? But approaching it with curiosity and asking questions like, could this be beneficial and healthy for me? And I realized, at this time in my life, I need the time to focus on myself. I need this time and space to focus on my career. And this relationship actually provides that. So that's one example.
I love that, because that you're so singing off my hymn sheet. My relationship, I want to be quality over quantity, because I'm at any one time spinning many plates. I personally am seeking a long distance relationships specifically for that. And also I'd be curious to see what your thought is around, who we are aligned with in our 20s and 30s and have that amazing connection then. That doesn't necessarily always mean that these are the right partnership to take us through our 50s, 60s and 70s, So sometimes you can be with the right person at the right time, and then all of a sudden you're not just as aligned then, but you can move on to somebody else. Would that be what are your thoughts around that?
I love that you brought that up, because I think it goes back to what I was alluding to with the feminine energy being very changeable and very fluid. And I definitely do think that we have different seasons in our lives, and we have certain people come into our lives at certain times because we're in that season, and then we transition into a different season where we are looking for or needing different things. And when I look back on my 20-year marriage, for a large portion of that time, I definitely feel like, yes, I was with the right person at that time to have children with. and to create a family with. And, you know, I look back at our personalities and the way we complemented one another, and how those attributes benefited our children. But then at a specific time, it was not meant to continue.
Yeah.
And it was very obvious at that time that, okay, we're moving into a new phase here. So yes, I absolutely agree that, you know, going from that idea that a lot of us have, that we're going to find one person, one soulmate, and we're going to be with them for the rest of our lives. Maybe at a time in history that fit the majority of the people, but at this point, when, you know, we're living so much longer, you know, a couple of decades ago, the average lifespan of a woman, not decades, a couple of centuries ago, like 200 years ago, the average lifespan for a woman was 35 years. You know,
Yeah.
and now it's in the 80s.
Yeah. And I tell people that all the time. Like, I've seen it over and over again. We can have various great loves and various soulmates in our lives. It's not just the one. And there's something freeing, I have to say, just as I'm approaching and I'm in perimenopause, there's something empowering about it, in that we start to let go. I wish we did it sooner, but a lot of women, this is when we start to become more comfortable with who we are and what we want, and having the courage to speak our minds. Some people are fortunate enough to have that when they're younger, but I know for me, this is when I'm finally starting to not care what other people think as much. And there's something about that I think ties into why this is such an empowering time in our lives. We don't care as much about the judgment society puts upon us. We have this awareness, this awakening within us, that there's something else for us, that we have this call of the spirit we have to attend to. And I could see why that could lead to these amazing connections, new soulmates that really bring us a new satisfaction in life that we haven't had before.
Absolutely, yes. And that has definitely been part of my journey as well. And you know, the person I'm in a relationship with now, I can honestly say that he's the first person that I've ever been able to feel comfortable being completely authentic with.
Mm-hmm.
I look back and realize I always felt like I had to hold certain parts of myself back in relationships. And I agree, that's part of this transition, is listening to that intuition, listening to our inner selves, and being able to feel empowered to be seen and heard as we authentically
I love
are.
that. I think that's so amazing. You know, if there's nothing else that you take away from it, is, you know, always go to the core of you first. And if, you know, and it's such a common theme in all of the shows that we're doing, is once you put yourself front and center of your own life, you know, you're the star of your own movie.
What I like about that too is there's a common belief that, you know, if you're soulmates, you should automatically understand what each other wants. But really, your soulmate would be so grateful if you would just tell them how to please you. It doesn't have to be this, you know, psychic thing. I mean, sometimes they just need to know. Just tell them from the heart what brings you pleasure, and they'll be so grateful, and they'll be more than happy to step up.
I think the best tip I can give you is to find a style of meditation that really works for you. And that could be just taking a minute throughout your day several times to ground yourself. You used the word, you know, grounding earlier, and that's really key. And that could be just practicing a presence exercise, being mindful. It could be taking 2 minutes to step outside into nature. It could be using some breath work. For me, because I'm a dancer, and I'm a professional belly dance instructor. I love dancing, so taking 5-minute dance breaks throughout the day, turning the music on, you know, whatever kind of music you feel like listening to, and just moving your body and releasing energy, allowing whatever has built up, any tension and stress that's built up, allowing it to release. And you know, I know that's not a very, you know, specific tip, because everybody has a different style of meditation that works for them.
Yeah. And I love, no, but I'm 100%, because meditation is the #1 thing to get to the core of who and what you are and what you're about, and really understanding what is going on internally, and to stay focused and human and connected are the 3 main things that we need, that you've just said. Is we need to constantly be learning and challenging our brains, so that we don't get to a stage where we go, right, well, now that's done, I don't need to worry about it. So learning, connecting with others, staying connected, and the physicality of, and I'm not talking about intimacy, I'm talking about meeting friends for coffees and dinners and walks and movement. So if we connect with people, if we learn and we move, they're the best basis for keeping everything in order. And I have thoroughly enjoyed learning lots of wonderful hints and tips. And
thank you, Vanessa, and thank you for reminding us that this can be an incredible time of our lives. It's a great reminder for me as well, and I really appreciate your being here today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to have been here. So thank you for having me. And I hope that this is helpful and useful for so many women out there.
Incredibly.
Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao. Oh, oh my gosh. See, this is what I love about stuff like this, is that you get the conversation started. I want people, you know, even if you're not menopausal or you're male or this, you think this doesn't apply to you, there are women and men in your life that this does apply to. And if you have got mothers, grandmothers, sisters, whatever, be aware of them and actually what goes on with their bodies, that they don't make any fuss. You know, there are women who holding down jobs, still doing everything that they did before, and have it with hot flushes, vaginal dryness, you know, brain fog.
And it eventually happens to all of us. So it's something, it's relevant to everybody. And
just be kinder to, not kinder, but just more cognitive of, you know, what people actually go through. Because people aren't talking about it doesn't mean that it's not happening to them, you know? So yeah, let's get the conversation started loud and proud. Absolutely.
Speaking of conversations, I just wanted to let you know, remember we had a letter from Heather in a recent episode?
Yes, I do.
She wrote back to us and gave us a quick update. I just thought I would share it with you because it just really made me happy.
Yeah.
So she said, hi, Jean and Lady Portia. Thank you so much for your response. I really needed to hear it. That weekend, I stood my ground in terms of boundaries. I had a family member I always been to, and I told her how I felt and how their behavior upset me. It felt very empowering. I also told a few different guys messaging me that I did not feel ready to go on dates at the moment. The guys were all understanding, but my family member and I left it on a note of them being angry with me. I cried most of that day. I had a heavy feeling of sadness inside me for a few days. So the family situation helped me have a cathartic weep. I kept listening to your message over and over. Finally, I went online and booked myself for a cinema ticket.
Great.
I got dressed up as though I were going on a date, except this time I was going on a date with myself. And I decided to just enjoy an evening in my own company. I know they're singing to you, right? I was a little bit anxious because the cinema is in the town my ex lives in, but I do not want to live in fear or swear off of a town, county, or country because of this. I think I felt a little bit of PTSD from this stuff because when the postman came to my door, seeing his jacket, just like my ex had me feeling a bit anxious. I was shaking for a while afterwards. I also still look over my shoulder a bit when driving away from that town, especially. So I thought it was good to put myself through this. Overall, I feel like this will be a defining experience for me. Having been pushed around so much, gaslighted, and my feelings invalidated, I now feel a sense of calm, feeling that if something doesn't feel right for me, I will not allow it anymore. Easier said than done, but that's my new view at the moment. I have taken your advice and started making more art and exercising a lot more too. So baby steps to getting myself to not only the version I was before, but a more assertive version too. Kind regards, Heather.
Oh, I love it. I love every single thing about that. Take yourself on a date, fall in love with yourself again. And, you know, of course you have got a bit of PTSD around this because you're only human. But the wonderful thing, it hasn't, and again, you know, it hasn't stopped you from living. You're living, you're feeling the fear and you're doing it anyway. You're getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. I am not going to let this stop me. You're not going to become into some hermit that stays in their house that doesn't move any more than 2 streets. It's kind of like whatever happens, happens. And I'm now in a place where I'm a superhuman and I can deal with it. I love that all. So cheers, Heather. You are.
I have a little bit of my martini espresso left. I just want to have a toast to Heather.
I love Heather. I think she's amazing.
I do too. To get that learning at 26 years old.
Oh gosh, you couldn't
Amazing.
You couldn't buy that, you know.
Absolutely.
You couldn't buy a course in that.
Well, Lady Portia, shall I read our next listener letter?
Do you?
Our new one?
Yes.
I do. We're starting to get our letters more frequently. Yes. Hi, Jean and Lady Portia. My name is Holly, and I'm a 36-year-old lawyer in Boston who is on track to being a partner very soon at a firm I really enjoy working at.
Go girl.
I know, right? She said, I met the one 2 years ago, and until recently, things with him were wonderful. My partner is a 44-year-old VP of marketing at a Fortune 500 company. So he's always understood and supported my career ambitions, just as he has had his. We talked about getting married and starting a family when I made partner. Our values are similar. He makes me laugh and the sex has been great. So I've really been very happy with him. However, for the past couple of weeks, he's been distant, but was denying it for a time. It was driving me crazy until he finally told me what was up. He was offered his dream job in Los Angeles. And the thing that shocked me the most is he accepted it without talking to me. And even worse than that is that he didn't even invite me to come with him, which has been a complete shock. I asked him why, and he said he thought it would be selfish of him to ask me to go because I'd have to start my career over. And he didn't want to put me in that position of having to choose. He didn't want me to resent him. And he said if he turned down his dream job in return, he'd have resented it. He also said he has tried long distance relationships before with a couple of his exes and it did not work out. He loses interest from not consistently seeing the significant other in person. I told him people make it work all the time, and he pointed out that having kids as a long distance family was a non-starter. I do see the logic of that, but I'm devastated as my biological clock is ticking and I can't imagine loving anyone else as I love him. I'm hurt and confused that he never even told me about his dream job and he didn't even discuss it with me. I don't see why he cannot at least try long distancing with me, as his actions have shown he really does love me. Is there a chance he may change his mind? You know, is this a midlife crisis? Or I'm wondering if it's really worth losing the love of my life for a job on my end. At the same time, he seems to have no problem with giving up love for his job. My best friend told me she was enjoying your podcast and told me I should ask you for advice. I feel trapped because I love him and my career as well and don't see a way to have both. What should I do? Signed, Holly.
Well,
wow.
I have
There's a lot there.
Yes, I have a lot that I have to say about this, and some of it might not be the most pleasant. And you know, the guy, obviously we don't know the full circumstances, But
Correct.
first thing that I will say is that there's no such thing as either or. You can have and. You can have a career and have a family. And the thing about it is we need more women in positions of leadership and partners so that they change and set the culture for the women coming underneath. If you leave to have children and then you never go back, then that window is never opened, and women will get to a certain point, and once you have children, like years ago over here, that if you worked in the civil service, you could work in the civil service until you got married, and as a woman, and that was it. Not as a man, but as a woman, because then obviously you'd be going off having children. So you can have children and a career, and you can be the boss, and you set the tone for the other women within that you work for, and you're setting the tone for how men should treat other women like that. Because men don't worry about, you know, being fathers and having careers. Second of all, if on such a dime he is prepared to throw in the towel and move countries, and you know, you're not top of his priority. So that's just, you know,
Exactly.
the long and short of it is you're probably more invested than he is, and he's one of these people that I am in love with whatever is in front of me. And if it's not in front of me, it's not on my radar. And I want this job, and I actually am loving the life that we've got now, but this is more attractive to me, and I am going to go there. Because he was making an awful lot of assumptions around the fact that, you know, it's not like, where did they, Boston?
She's in Boston and he's going to LA.
So there are workplaces, you know, there are more than one company in all of America. You know, she may have needed another couple of years to have got to where she's at, but if she's being tipped to be a partner in Boston,
she loves the firm,
which is the firm. That is not to say that if she decided to move to somewhere else, that, you know, that's a transferable skill. Whatever skill that you've got in this job, in this field, will be attractive somewhere else. And what's to say, in a lot more sunshine, you might enjoy that all the more. So a lot of assumptions were made, which meant that you were not top of his priority when he was making the list. This is a job that he wants for him, and you're not in the equation. So I would, if it was me, I would look at and evaluate this and look at it and go, I think from his actions and the fact that, you know, I'm not on his radar, I bless it and I move on from it. Because if you do the either or, I'll chase after him to have a family. You're not top of his priority, so you end up having children with this man. And why do you think then all of a sudden you will be top of his priority? You know, because he might get a job somewhere else and been like, right, I'm off. I'm actually getting divorced. I don't really want kids. I don't want a wife. I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me, that, you know, he's using this opportunity. And again, I know we don't know all the details, but it sounds like he's using this as an opportunity to leave a relationship that he wasn't 100% committed to. And I feel like, you know, to quote that Whoopi Goldberg from Ghost, Molly, you're in danger, girl. So I think, Holly, you were in danger and you didn't know it. And I think you dodged a bullet. And I don't want to minimize your pain. And, you know, and Lady Portia's right, you know, of course your job is transferable, but I think there is some wisdom to be said if, you know, if he could give you up so easily without really as much angst as you're going through, then I don't necessarily think that's the type of person you really want to have a father with. And this is a blessing, and just, I mean, a child with. And I think this is a blessing in disguise. And I know it's hard because this is the time of our lives where our biological clocks are ticking. And, you know, maybe it's time to look at perhaps freezing eggs, or adopting a child and having that on your own. I know it's probably a little too soon to think about those things, but those options are on the table too. If, you know, if this was somebody who really showed that this was really a painful decision for him, then I would think about potentially moving and starting over. But at this point, you've got your dream job. And if he's not really in it as much as you are, why start over for yourself?
And also, why is his dream job more important than your dream job? You know, at no point, where was the discussion to go, look, I get it, we're like, you know, we're both in this. What do you think? Do you think that there's options of moving, or could I, like, if I give up this, I don't want to resent not going, and I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
If there's discussion, a lot of the time, if you don't discuss and you assume what I'm going to think, that annoys me more, because you're making assumptions. You know, imagination is the biggest waste of worry. You know, because we're worrying about what someone else is going to say, and then they actually end up not saying it all, and we're not actually giving the person the proper respect to go, here, let's hash it out. And so this is my thing about the universe does things, it steps in and it takes people out of our way that we wouldn't get rid of these people, and we wouldn't have these people plucked out of our lives, apart from the fact that the universe has crept in and is like, he is not for you. I am taking him out of your way. I'm actually moving him to another part of the country that you're not even going to be aligned anymore, because we've something better lined up for you. We have somebody waiting in the wings, and you need this clean break, and you needed to see who this person was, so that the next person that you get, or that is waiting there, is the one that you will have the children with. Or if you don't have your own children, he might actually have some toddlers or some younger children that you become stepmom to, and you can still do everything in your career and all the stuff and have your cake and eat it. Or you might be able to get pregnant yourself and do your own thing. Who knows? The world is full of endless possibilities. I would say, if you become a partner, get help in. You'll be making enough money to get a cleaner and childcare. These are two things. You don't need to juggle it all.
There's something very important you said that I don't want to let slip away without just celebrating it a little bit, because most of our listeners, I think, are high achievers. And one of the things that happens with high achievers is we get really invested in something when we accomplish something, like finding somebody that we think is the one. And of course we have, I believe, we've talked about this many times, you believe it too, we have more than one.
Well, I have 3,000.
Yeah, right. And sometimes you can have a one and then you grow apart, and that's like what happened with our last guest last time. But the key is, when the universe steps in a situation like this, the achiever will sometimes resist and keep pursuing because they don't want to lose their investment, you know, of their time and their energies. But really, just when something like this happens to you, take a beat and go within and say, is this really dodging a bullet? Is this something that I just need to let go of so I can make room for something else? There have been so many times in my life that I've held on to something way longer than I should have, because I didn't want to lose my investment of my time. And women especially do this in their 30s, when that biological clock is ticking, and they hold on to a relationship because they think, oh my gosh, I'm losing my chance to have a kid and whatnot. But
and I would say, look at it with different lenses. You know, look at it from different points of view. If you look at it as, where is he coming from? Why is he thinking like this? What is his actual driver behind this? What is your actual takeaway from it? And if you were speaking to a third party who's looking in like us, what would they be saying? Like, what would your mum be saying to you, or a girlfriend be saying to you? Or when you tell somebody in work what's going on, what's their automatic reaction? What are they actually thinking? Because if you go back to the Jade, or the Jada and Will and Chris, there's 4 completely different perspectives on the same case scenario. There's the guy, so take the morality out of it completely, but there's the guy who tells the joke, the lady who is the brunt of the joke, there is the husband of the lady at the brunt of the joke, and there's the entire world watching. So every single person will have a completely different point of view in that scenario, but it's still the same scenario. So you're looking at this only through your eyes. look at it through a couple of different lenses and see, do you come up with a fresher approach, and maybe does something resonate and stick in with you and go, actually, I think I'm dodging a bullet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Lady Portia,
Speaking
we
of
are at the
bullets,
end.
I do live in Belfast. And you can tell everybody that you were in Belfast and nobody shot you and there was no bombs, and everyone thinks that it's a war zone. It's a
And you know
lovely,
what?
fartsy, fun city.
And my ride to the party got a little too wasted to drive me home. So I walked home at like 1 o'clock in the morning in Belfast, and I was fine.
Oh,
I was perfectly fine.
And it was such a joy seeing you twice in the 1 week. What a joy! Oh my God,
It was
had a
so
wonderful
great.
time. Well, listen, thank you so much. And as always, if you do want to get in touch, like our lovely writers, and the fact, I love that Heather wrote back as well and told us how she was getting on. You can get us on all the social apps. So we're on all the podcast sites, iTunes, Spotify, our website. If you do want to write to us, then you can communicate to us through datingissuchadrag.com, and you can email us. And please like, share, subscribe. And I would invite you to, if you're under the age of 35, if you're under the age of 40, share this with the women in your life that you think it could benefit. Okay, so they might not be tech savvy, might not be listening to podcasts or watching podcasts, but please send them this link, and if we can give them any help and support, that is exactly what we are here to do, because teamwork makes the dream work, honey.
Absolutely. And their email for letters asking for advice is datingisuchadrag@gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, as always, it has been such a joy seeing you, sharing time with you. So until we meet again, Jeannie, take care, be good, and if you can't be good at it.
Be good at it.
Ciao, ciao for now.
Your love's what I need. Your love is what I need.